If you were a kid when the Nintendo Entertainment System was dominating the market, then chances are that you played one of Capcom's popular platformers based on the Disney afternoon. I'm talking about 8-bit classics like DuckTales, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and even Darkwing Duck. Now, if you've ever wondered what it would look like if somebody made a Rugrats game based on those NES greats, then look no further than Adventures in Gameland, a loving tribute to the 1990s show that also works as a throwback side-scrolling platformer. Ooh, I sure hope you brought a few extra diapers because this is my review of Rugrats, Adventures in Gameland. Although Rugrats originally debuted on television in 1991, it took a surprisingly long time for them to make their way to home consoles. In fact, we didn't see Tommy, Chucky, and the rest of the Tiny Tykes get their own video game until the search for Reptar hit the PlayStation in 1998, a full 7 years after becoming one of Nicktoons' biggest shows. And that means that we never got a chance to see what a company like Capcom could have done with the license on the Nintendo Entertainment System. That is, until now. Adventures in Gameland is more than just another Rugrats game. It's also a curious alternate history experience that asks the question, what if Rugrats got its own NES game in the early 1990s? This is a modern game that wants to take you back to the heyday of the 8-bit era, when games based on the Disney afternoon were all the rage. It's a throwback to the types of 2D platformers that put your favorite cartoon characters in fantastical situations, no matter if it actually made sense or not. One of the most exciting things about Rugrats is that it's more than just a nostalgia-filled throwback experience, because it's also a nostalgia-filled modern experience. At any point of the game, players can switch between the authentic 8-bit look and the more modern high-definition design, complete with hand-drawn characters, amazing new backgrounds, and cameos that look like they were plucked straight out of the cartoon. I ended up playing through the game with both the modern HD graphics and the old-school 8-bit look, and it really made me wish that more throwback games would take this route. Now, there is a story here, but don't get too excited. When the babies see a commercial for the upcoming Reptar video game, they pretend to be in their own video game through the power of imagination. This basically means that they'll go to what is otherwise a fairly normal place in the house, like a kitchen or a bedroom or an attic, and then imagine a video game world full of enemies, diverging paths, and even recognizable bosses pulled straight out of the show. For example, the kitchen level will have them butt-stomping their way through a frigid ice stage, all because Dee Dee has the refrigerator open. Rugrats, Adventures in Gameland plays like a greatest hits of all the 8-bit platformers that you loved back in the day. For starters, a lot of the gameplay feels like it was lifted directly from Capcom's 1990 classic, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. Our four heroes' main form of attack is to either jump or butt stomp on the level-specific enemies. They can also pick up and throw blocks, which works as both an attack and a way to reach the high-up locations. The goal in each stage is to pick up the 4 coins, grab the screwdriver, and then unlock the gate, which will take you directly to one of several tough boss fights. Now, what's cool about the game is that you can take one of the 4 characters into any of the stages. Each of the babies has their own stats and advantages, with the 4 characters mapping perfectly to the heroes in Super Mario Bros. 2. Tommy is your basic Mario type with good all-around stats. Chucky can jump real high in the air, not unlike Luigi. Lil not only gets a high jump, but can actually float down to the ground, similar to the princess. And that leaves Phil to sub in for Toad, a character who may not be able to jump very high, but can pick up crates and ice blocks faster than anybody else. And if that wasn't enough, you can actually switch between the characters at any time, similar to the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on the NES. Look, as a throwback experience trying to mimic our favorite games from the late 80s and early 90s, Rugrats Adventures in Gameland mostly excels. Between the authentic look, feel, and level designs, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it convinces a few unsuspecting gamers to think that it's actually a port of an old 8-bit NES game from 3 decades ago. It's not, of course, And those of us who spent way too many hours playing DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers will be able to spot the subtle differences between the modern throwback and the real thing. That's sad, as a modern game, there are a few things holding this wannabe retro release back. For one thing, it's incredibly short. With only 7 levels to complete, it really won't take you more than an hour to beat the game. Maybe an hour and a half if you go through the levels a second time using the 8-bit graphics. And really, outside of the 2 graphic modes, there's not a whole lot of replay here. You may find that $25 is a bit steep for an experience that lasts about as long as that Rugrats in Paris movie. You'll also find that the gameplay is shockingly simplistic, even by 8-bit standards. Don't expect to see any power-ups or added abilities because Tommy, Chucky, and the rest of the game are reduced to walking, jumping, butt-stomping, and throwing blocks. And because there aren't very many blocks laying around to be thrown, pretty much all of the combat has the babies jumping on bad guys. This sets us up to take a lot of cheap hits, as it's not always easy to jump over an enemy or even stand beside it. This is especially true in the refrigerator level, where you'll find jumping enemies on tiny platforms of ice that'll make you slide right into them. That's not fun. There are other things that left me disappointed. For example, none of the voice actors appear in the game, not even when you play with the HD graphics and the modern sounds. I also found the 8-bit backgrounds to be a bit lacking, especially when compared to the Disney Afternoon games that it's mimicking. And on that topic, the final stage basically recycles the same backgrounds and enemies from the first 6 levels, making it feel more like filler than a grand climax. This is one of those games that definitely starts a lot stronger than it ends. But look, most of those issues aren't going to keep you from having a fun time playing through Rugrats Adventures in Gameland, especially if you're a longtime fan of the cartoon. I admire the approach of turning the popular series into a throwback 2D platformer, and I absolutely love that developer Wallride went that extra step to create an 8-bit version that can be switched to at any time. This is a game that comes extremely close to capturing the look and feel of those classic Disney Afternoon games from Capcom, but ultimately falls slightly short in execution. Still fun for the fans who grew up with Tommy, Chucky, and the rest of the Rugrats. Rugrats Adventures in Gameland works as both a throwback platformer inspired by Capcom's popular line of Disney Afternoon games, as well as a love letter to the beloved show that transfixed kids throughout the 1990s and beyond. Although a bit on the simplistic side, this 2D platformer looks and plays the part, especially when you switch over to the 8-bit graphics and old-school soundtrack. This is a short experience that runs into a lot of the issues that were so common to the Nintendo Entertainment System games from that era, but fans of the cartoon will get a kick out of the levels, characters, and cameos. It's not especially original and probably not at the same level as some of those 8-bit classics that inspired it, but it is a fun Rugrats game, and really, that's the important part. Hey, thanks for watching my review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite Disney Afternoon game? Oh man, there are a lot to choose from, including a couple of DuckTales and Rescue Rangers titles, as well as Tailspin and Darkwing Duck. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a lot more reviews. Maybe too many reviews. Can there be too many reviews? I guess we'll find out soon enough. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.